Dacia with EasyWay, and today we're going to do the in-service training for our Smart Stand. Smart Stand is designed for pivot type transfers, so doing transfers with residents and patients from the side of the bed to a chair, from a chair to a wheelchair, from a chair or the side of the bed to the toilet and back. So pivot type transfers. The residents or patients do need to be able to bear some weight, have some sort of upper body strength, not a lot, and they do not necessarily need to have upper body strength for pulling and holding themselves up. The device will do all of that. So to get started, I'd like to talk about the battery. This is a battery-powered device. The device, when you purchase it, comes with 2 batteries and a charger. The purpose for that is there's always going to be a battery on the charger being charged, ready to use. So when we start, we want to make sure that we have a fully charged battery, and the way we place the battery into the cradle is by lining the battery pack up in the cradle, and then with gravity you can just let go and it'll get in place. All right. A lot of times I'll ask you to hold the handle and slide it in place, but if you have to force it in place, it's not lined up, so pull it back out, line it up, and it'll slide with little effort in place. Now the smart technology does monitor the battery level, so I'm going to go ahead and power it on. Like I said, it does diagnostics, it zeroes out the scale if it's integrated into the device, and then it'll show the battery level on the control panel. Just like your cell phone, the more bars, the better the battery, but as you use the device, it'll go down, down, down. With a fully charged good battery, you get about 140 lifts for a good charge. All right? So it's not like you're going to be changing it mid-shift or what have you. There's no harm in changing the battery before it gets low, but the computer, like I said, the computer will monitor the battery level. Once it's low enough, the computer will actually tell you to swap the battery out. If you ever see that on the control panel, don't do any more lifts, swap the battery out. But again, it doesn't hurt the device to change the battery before we get to that point, right? So if you come on shift, you turn it on, it's at about a half charge, you can go ahead and change the battery. But just make sure when you go to the charger to pull the battery off to use, that the green LED light is lit. If it's an amber light and it's charging, we don't want to change that battery out. We want to make sure it's charged fully, so green light, pull it off, and then now put it into the device to use for the shift. Once the battery's in the cradle, we power the device on by pushing the on-off button on the front of the control panel. The computer built into the device will do diagnostics, make sure everything's running properly. This particular smart stand does have an integrated scale, so when you turn it on, it'll actually zero out automatically, and it will deduct the weight of the harness from the weight of your resident or patient. Okay. There's 3 different ways to operate the device. We have redundant controls in place so that if ever something would fail, you have 2 other ways to operate the device. So the first way to operate is the push buttons on the front of the control panel. So you have an up button, and you'll see the computer's telling you that the up key is depressed, and we have a down button on the front of the control panel. That is the first way to operate the device. The second way is we have these thumb switches on the side of the control panel. What's nice about that is as I'm moving the device around, I can get it in the proper position of what I need to operate the device and safely move the patient from one surface to the other. The starting position is with the arms down all the way. So I'm going to go ahead and push the down button to get those in the proper position. These thumb switches work by pushing them away from me. If I pull them towards me, they will not work. So it only works pushing that away. So we have the down buttons on the left side and the up buttons on the right side. The third way of operating the device is the remote pendant here. This is a pneumatic pendant, which is nice because if we happen to drop it in the toilet or get it wet, all we have to do is clean and sanitize it when we start using it. Okay? Just like all the other buttons, the up is on the top and the down is on the bottom. Okay. The remote pendant does have a magnet affixed to it, and the purpose for that is just to position it properly. I just put it on the boom right there because anytime I'm going to use the remote pendant, I'll be on this side of the device. So don't put the pendant in the accessory bag. Don't loop it around like that. Just go ahead and use that magnet and fix it to the boom right there. The Smart Stand is equipped with a manual leg spreader. And the purpose for the leg spreader is just to make the legs open and close, and to get around obstacles, to get past large wheelchairs or recliners. What's nice about the manual leg spreaders is quick and it's easy, so I can go from the narrow position to the wide position just in a fraction of a second. The stability of the device is the same regardless of the leg position. So you don't have to worry about, oh, is this stable? Can I lift somebody up in the wide position or the narrow position? You can lift people up in the wide position or the narrow position. And as you're doing the transfer, you can go from narrow position to wide or back and forth. Okay, sometimes we'll be in the wide position to get around a wheelchair, but then we have to go to the narrow position to go through the threshold going into the restroom. All right, so you can change it as you're doing that transfer. All right. The device is equipped with locking casters, which is nice. However, when I'm actually doing the transfer, if I'm doing a standard pivot transfer where the patient or the resident has their feet on the footrest, I will not lock the casters. So do not lock the casters when you're doing pivot type transfers, because I do want the device to move and center itself with the patient's or the resident's center of gravity. So I do want the device moving, and when we do the transfer, you'll actually see the device center itself for the patient and resident. Okay. The footrest is adjustable. So we have a low, a medium, and a high position, and the way I adjust the footrest is I just lift up on the front of it here, because there's some guide pins. Then I lift it up vertically and then pull it out of the slot. And you'll see the guide pins are here, and those pins are also to make sure that the footrest does not move left and right, up and down as my patient or resident is on the device. Right? So the different positions are for different resident heights. Okay? I'll put it in the medium position. I'll put the shin pads in the medium position, and that'll take care of most of your residents. Right? The reason I want to adjust the height is if I have a resident that's really short or someone that's really tall. If I have a patient or resident that's about 5 foot and shorter, then because of comfort, I will raise that footrest up to the high position. So I'll just reach down, lift it up, move it in that high position for those shorter patients and residents. So 5 foot and lower, I'll raise it to the high position. If I have patients or residents that are about 6'2" and taller, then I'll go ahead and move that footrest to the lower position for them, again, for their comfort and ease. Will it work in the medium position for someone less than 5 feet and over 6'2"? Yes, it will, and it'll be fine. It'll operate perfectly. It's safe, but for comfort's sake of the patient or resident, it helps if I adjust that. The other adjustment, so that's the footrest. The other adjustment is the shin pad. And the way I adjust the shin pad, and the reason I want to adjust the shin pad, is that we recommend the shin pad to be about 4 inches or so from the kneecap, right? But the way that I would adjust the shin pad is we have this detent here. So I pull this pin out, and now I can adjust it up and down. And when I'm at the right position, I let go of the pin, it goes in the hole and holds it in place. So I want to adjust that. So it's about 4 inches from the kneecap, so I'll go down. I go through. We do have an optional. The manufacturer says that these shin strap is completely optional. So if I have a resident or a patient that is combative, that really is not interested in doing the transfer, I'm afraid that they'll kick off or they'll step off of the foot plate. That's when I would go ahead and recommend you use the shin pad. And the way that works is I just bring it around the patient or resident, buckle it in place, and then I just tighten it. Right? And it just safely holds and securely holds the legs in place, so now my patient or resident cannot step off of the device. And once again, that is optional. It's up to the facility to determine if they're going to use it or not. And if it is optional at the facility, the recommendation is if I have a combative resident or patient, or somebody that has restless leg syndrome, or somebody that I'm afraid is going to just step off the device, that's when I would use that. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and put the foot plate in the medium position. As I said, most of my residents and my patients will work perfectly fine in the medium position. All right. Now I want to talk about if you're using the device and it doesn't work the way that you know that it's supposed to work, right? If I hit the button and it doesn't go up, always look here on the display panel, because the computer will give you some feedback of why it may not be working. All right. So as we were talking about the proper use of the device, the computer will tell you, okay, I'm hitting the up key, I'm hitting the down key, that type of stuff. There are 3 reasons why the device will deliberately not work, and the computer makes it that way. So the first way is if you're over here operating the device and it doesn't work the way it's supposed to, look here. The first reason that it would not work is if somebody had depressed the emergency stop button. So if it's not working, look at the control panel. The control panel will tell you, oh, emergency stop button is pushed, right? So all I have to do is turn the emergency stop button clockwise, a quarter turn, and now that'll go away and the device will work. Okay, so that's one reason that the device would not work on purpose. The second reason is the built-in controls, smart technology that is built into the device, monitors the operation of the smart stand. All right. This particular unit is 400-pound weight capacity. We have a 500-pound and we also have an 800-pound capacity unit. The computer will monitor the operation of the device. So if the computer identifies that I'm lifting something that's in excess of the weight capacity, so this is 400 pounds. So if I'm lifting a patient or a resident that's more than 400 pounds, the computer will determine that and then stop operation. So it'll look like that. So I'll start lifting up my patient or resident. The computer will say, wait a minute, they're more than 400 pounds, and it'll stop. There won't be a bell, there won't be a whistle, there won't be smoke that comes out of the device, it'll just stop, all right? So again, human nature is you'll hit the button like, why is it not working? Look at the device, the control panel. The control panel will actually say overweight limit. So it'll tell you that, oh, I'm lifting something that's more than the weight capacity of the device. The computer will allow you to put them back down. So it will allow the arms to go down. So I'll lower the arms, disconnect them from the device, and then go get a piece of equipment that can support that weight. So the third reason that it would not operate on purpose is if I'm using the device and I get my patient or resident up and it's not working properly, I hit the button again. If I look here, if the display is dark, it doesn't say anything, right? Go ahead and hit the on-off button to see if it turns back on, because the computer will power down after about 15 minutes of idle time. So go ahead and hit the on-off button. Now if the on-off button does not turn the device on, that's a good indication that the battery died, all right? So we don't want to say, hey, Mr. Jones, hold on a minute, let me go get a new battery. We want to put them down, right? So I go ahead and position the device to where I'm going to put down my resident or patient. And because the battery's dead, I can't use the actuator to lower them down. But there is an emergency release lever right here on the side of the actuator. So if I have somebody up in the device, the power is gone, I can use this emergency release lever to lower them down into position. Right? So again, I position the device wherever I want to put the resident down. The manual says you lift up 1, 2, 3 and hold. And with the weight of the resident in place, those arms will slowly go down. All right? The harder you pull, the faster they'll go down. Now I won't just drop them in place real quick, it'll go slow. But if you pull up on this and they're going down quicker than you want them to, just let up a little bit, release it a little bit, and it'll go slower. All right? So when they're in position, once they're down, disconnect the harness, remove the device from them, disconnect the harness from them, pull that off, and then go change your battery. Okay, so that'd be the third reason that would stop operating. So, just a little bit about our harnesses. So, EasyWay harnesses are all rated to 1,000-pound weight capacity. Okay, the reason we did that is we don't want you to be concerned with, is this size harness going to work with my patient or my resident. So all of our slings and harnesses are designed to lift 1,000 pounds safely. However, before we use a harness, we want to make sure we do a quick visual inspection to ensure that the harness is going to work properly. And what I do is I just look over the harness and I look for rips, tears, any frays, anything like that. So if there are rips, tears, or frays, or if there's thread that's coming off, we do not want to use the harness. Right? This one is perfectly fine. Right. All right. So in order to place the harness properly, I want to make sure that I take the harness and I put it so this bottom edge of the harness is on whatever surface my patient or resident is seated. Okay, so for this particular transfer, it's going to be from a chair to a wheelchair. I need to make sure that my harness is down far enough that it's just touching the seat cushion. Okay, so I'm going to bring my patient or resident along. And I don't present the equipment to my patient or resident until I'm ready to affix the harness to the device, okay? I want to minimize anxiety for my patient or resident, so I keep the equipment away from them, hook the harness up, and once the harness is hooked up, then I present the equipment, hook it up, and do that transfer. Okay? With practice and competence and confidence, you can safely transfer a patient from one surface to the other in less than 2 minutes. So I just ask my patient the resident to lean forward. And I slide the harness behind them until that bottom edge touches the cushion. I have them sit back. I'm going to grab the belt, bring it around, connect it in. Just make sure that there's no twists in the material. And once it's buckled, I'm going to go ahead and tighten it. Right? And you want to make it as tight as you can get it, right? Without cutting off circulation. You want them passing out because they can't breathe. I bring the harness underneath the arms, so this is the proper position of the harness. So the arms are on the outside of the arms of the harness. Once the harness is in place, now I present the equipment. Bring the equipment up. I can adjust the legs if needed. And I just ask the resident to go ahead and put your feet on the footrest. So they'll lift their feet up, they'll put their feet on the footrest, and I slide it in until their shins are up against the shin pad. This is the ideal position for the transfer. Just get as close as possible. If you can't get so that the shins are touching the shin pads, get it as close as possible. Sometimes the wheelchair has the foot rests right here, preventing the device from getting as close as you need, but just get it as close as possible. For pivot type transfers, I'm going to go ahead and use the small loop on the harness. The long loop is for gait training, so the small loops is what we want to use. There are safety clips attached to the smart stand. Never ever touch those clips. Right? The tendency is to push those clips out of the way to get the harness in place, but the more we push the clips, if we push them all the way, the clips will fall off. We don't want that to happen. So this is a safety device, and the way that we can get the harness on is we just take this loop here, bring it around, flatten it up against this bar, and it slides right past the okay, so you see how it slid right past? This is really the hardest part about using this device, which is extremely easy if you practice, all right? So before you hook someone up, practice putting the harness on and taking it off, okay? So like I said, all you have to do is take this loop, flatten it up against this bar, and it slides right past the clip. All right, now fix the other side using the small loop again. Once both of them are connected, I have my resident just place their hands on the pads right here. Again, they don't have to have upper body strength. They don't have to hold themselves in place. It takes no effort from them. So in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and have my patient resident hold with one finger just to show you that it doesn't require upper body strength. Right? Everybody thins out as they stand up. So as we stand up, we thin out, and because of that, I'm going to actually hold the strap here, and as I raise my patient or resident, I'm going to pull this strap kind of back behind them and tighten it as they stand up, and you'll see this happen. So once I get the patient ready, so I hold on to the strap, push the up button, and as I raise her, and she'll thin out. So I'm going to go ahead and start tightening. You see how it's tightening, tightening. And about right here I can let go because she's thinned out as much as she's going to thin out. So quick, easy, 0% chance that I'm going to get injured getting her up, 0% chance that she's going to get injured if attached properly. Once she's up, now I can do the transfer. With safe patient handling equipment, the idea is to protect myself and protect the resident and the patient from getting injured. And in the moving of the equipment, it's also very important that we understand ergonomics. We don't want to now injure ourselves in my back by moving the device around. So I want to make sure that I practice good ergonomics. So I'm going to put my elbows up against my side, put those in place, and I'm actually going to move, walk and pull and move the device as I'm walking. Okay, I'm not going to pull with my muscles. I'm not going to twist it one way or the other because I can risk injuring my back. So I'm going to put my elbows up against my side. I'm going to start walking with the device. Okay. Now, if I do need to turn 90 degrees one direction or the other, what I've learned is if I'm going to go to the left, what's really nice is I can lock that left caster, and I'm going to push one side, and it's going to actually rotate around that caster. So I'm not going to twist my body. I'm actually going to just push one direction. So again, lock my elbows and start pushing with that locked caster. It rotates about that caster, and then once I'm positioned where I want to go, unlock that caster, and now I can move her that direction. Okay, so again, if I want to go to the right, just lock that right caster, push on the left side, it rotates around that lock caster, and ergonomically I'm safe and secure. All right. So once it's positioned, unlock that caster, now I can move her. Okay. So I'm moving her to the wheelchair. I do have the legs in the wide position to get around the wheelchair. I'll bring her close to that wheelchair, and then come to the side, grab the remote pendant, and then lower in place. Now, a lot of residents, they'll lock their legs, so I like to remind the resident or patient to go ahead and bend your knees. So they bend their knees, and now I set her down. Okay, let the machine do all the work. So go ahead and bring those lifting arms all the way down, because I want to create as much slack as possible. If I didn't bring them all the way down, then I might have to pull the harness to disconnect it, and again, at the risk of injury. So we don't need to do that, so bring the lifting arms all the way down. Once they're down, I'm going to go ahead, just reverse. So I'm going to push that strap flat up against the bar, slide it past the safety clips, take it off, do the other side. Once it's disconnected, again, get the equipment away from your patient or resident. So ask them to lift their legs up, move that device, get it out of the way. Then I'm going to unhook the button here, have them lean forward, and then it just pulls right out from behind them and have them sit back. Right? Safe, secure, no risk of injuries, and again, super safe for the patient and the resident. This particular smart stand does have an integrated scale. Okay? Like I said, during power up, the smart technology will zero out the scale, so I don't have to zero it out. However, if I believe that it needs to be zeroed out, all I have to do is hit the zero button right here, and it'll zero out the scale. To weigh a patient or a resident, all I need to do is get them up off of whatever surface they're on. I don't need to bring them all the way up in the upright position. I just have to get them up off of whatever device they're on. So like we talked about earlier, I'm going to grab the strap, because everybody thins out when they need to stand up. I'm going to lift up the patient or resident, pulling and tightening as we lift. And again, I'm going to stop right there. So they're off the device, their weight is totally on the smart stand, and now all I need to do is hit the weight button. So I press the weight button, it weighs them, and then I can put them back down. Or I can do the transfer and put them on whatever other surface they need to be on. Right? And that's how we weigh. What's nice about that is it clearly displays the weight on the control panel. I'll put it in the electronic medical record or write it down into the record, whatever I need to do. Now, sometimes we get busy and we forget to write down the weight. What's nice about the smart technology is it retains the previous weight that was taken on the computer. So if I am working on the resident, totally forget to write down the weight, I don't need to get them back up and do it. All I need to do to recall the last weight is hit the down button and then the weight button. So I'll press the down button and the weight button, and it'll pull up the last weight that was taken. Right, so then now I can write it in the electronic calculator. So next we're going to talk about how we can utilize the EasyWay Smart Stand for gait training. So it's a multi-purpose device, so it doesn't just do pivot transfers. We can also use the device to get patients up, get them walking, get them standing. They can do some balancing, self-posturing. We can also use the device for step training as well, so in rehab departments or physical therapy departments. We do have accessories for walker handles. The way that we install the walker handles is there's a open tube here. So we just insert the walker handle into that tube. There are colored rings so that it allows you to position it so that it's even on both sides. I've already installed the one on the right side, so I'm just going to demonstrate here. I just tighten this nut here. Don't be afraid to over tighten. Okay. And I've also positioned so it's not straight, it's a little out. It's a little bit more ergonomic for the patients if it's positioned so it's out like that, so their wrists come down, they're not in this way, they're kind of not like that. So just a little bit out when you position that. But you can position it any way that's best suited for your patient or resident. Because we're going to walk, I'm going to show you how to do some walking. I'm going to remove the foot plate from the smart stand. Okay, and just set that off to the side. I'm going to hook the harness up like it would normally. So same harness is used for walking. Have my patient move, or my resident move slightly forward. Just lean forward. Put that down until it touches the surface they're seated on. Bring the belt around, make sure it's not twisted. Buckle it in front and tighten. Once it's in place, I'm going to present the device to the patient or resident. I'm going to push it in until the shin pads are up against the shins. Because their feet are on the floor, you can see that the shin pad's a little bit higher, so I'm going to go ahead and adjust that down a little bit for the comfort of my patient. Okay, so I'm doing, like when we showed it before, we used the short loop because we were doing pivot transfers, but for walking, I want to use the long loop. Again, I don't want to touch the safety clip, so I'll bring the loop around, flatten it up against this bar, and slide it right past both sides. Just as before, I'm going to stand on the side. Here I am going to lock the casters in place because the patient's resident's feet are on the floor. I'm going to lock the casters in place. I'm going to stand over here, grab the belt, I'm going to pull on it as I raise her because she'll fit out. So as she stands up, tighten that belt. Okay, the machine is doing all the work, lifting her up. I'm going to lift her up all the way. All right, so she's standing upright. Move the chair out of the way, or if I can leave the chair if I'm concerned. I'll move the chair out of the way. At this point, I'm going to have her put her hands on the walking handle. So, and I'm going to get her weight underneath of her. So go ahead and put those sides. Now, if you can stand up, bear all your weight. Okay, you can back up your legs a little bit. Okay. So I get her comfortable. We're ready to walk. All right. At this point, we've talked through it. She knows that she's going to be walking. I'm going to walk backwards and she's going to walk towards me. So I want to make sure there's no obstacles behind me. Grab hold of the device. I'm going to unlock the casters. And at that point, I say, okay, you walk towards me, I walk away. So just walk away. Okay? What's nice about it is at any point, if she does go weak in the knees, right, the device supports her with this harness, and also she's protected from the equipment here with the shin pad. So we do want to make sure that we leave the shin pad in place for walking training, just because that might happen. So if we're doing walking training, she goes weak on the knees, we talk. If she can keep going, we'll have her stand back up, and we'll help her stand back up, and then we continue walking. Okay? Now as she gains strength, I can also now lower the device and give her more slack, so a little bit more freedom. Okay? She's still securely contained in the device, so if she goes weak in the knee, she's supported, she's not going to hit the ground. So 0% chance she's going to get injured by walking, 0% chance that I'm going to get injured from walking, because typically we'll use a gait belt. We're walking behind or beside our patient and resident, and if they go weak in the knees, we're not going to prevent them from falling. What we do typically is we assist them down to the ground, and that is potential for shoulder injury and for back injury. What's nice about this is she's totally contained. I have both hands free, so I can help her, I can adjust her, I can help her balance, that type of stuff. Okay? If we're working and she's done, she goes weak in the knees and she's done, what I can do now is I'll lock the casters and usually have an assistant. We can bring the chair up to her, the wheelchair up to her, and then I can put her back down into that chair or wheelchair and then take her back to her room or what have you. All right. So in this situation, we're doing the walk training. I can put her in front of a mirror, lock the casters in place. Now she can do some self-posturing, she can do some balancing, we can have her do some reach training, that type of stuff. If I want to do step training, what I would do is give her some slack. I put the foot plate on, and maybe I'll start in the low position so she's got a 1.5 inch, 2 inch step. She can work on that. She gets stronger. I'll take it to the medium position so it's a little bit more effort. And then lastly, I can go to the third position. So again, safely contained in the device, and she's doing step training. All right. Hopefully you were able to see how to safely get the patient up and start doing gait training, also posturing, balancing, and some step training. Okay. Any questions? Nope. Well, as good as the training was today, if you do have questions as you're out on the floor, first, second, third shift, we do have a QR code affixed to the device. All right. With this QR code, you just take your phone out, smartphone out, scan that QR code. It'll bring up a bunch of training videos for this particular device. Now, as a company, we decided instead of having one 35-minute long video, we broke those up into little sections. So if there's something you forget, like, oh, how do I put the harness on? Or how do I fix the emergency stop button being depressed? You can go to that particular video, click on that video, watch a 1 to 2 minute video on that specific issue, and then you're ready to go.